everybody. Danny Taylor here from the YOLO Home Team. I am so excited to have Jonathan Pollack with Offit Kurman with us today. Jonathan is a trust and estate attorney, and we're going to be sitting down and talking all things, or maybe not all things, a few things regarding real estate and trust. So, in hopes to have a more in-depth conversation face to face once the YOLO Home Team office is officially open. Jonathan, thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today.
Morning, a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So yeah, as we had chatted about previously, the YOLO Home Team is a team with the intention to assist families who have medically fragile or terminally ill children. So every time we buy or sell a home, a portion of our proceeds benefits a local family here. So I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate all of your insight as it relates to trust and real estate. I guess for the first question here, Jonathan, how would you say property trust factors into estate planning, and how can it benefit clients?
Overall, most people's estates, everyone has an estate, no matter how much money you have or how rich or poor you feel like you are. Usually, a large proportion of it is their property, their home. Sometimes people are lucky enough to have vacation homes or homes in other states. So we're always planning, thinking about their homes and how to transfer it to their loved ones upon their passing.
I think something that you raised is really interesting because, you know, some people might think, well, I don't have enough money to have a trust, or I don't have an estate. But regardless of the value, monetary value, it's important to put something in place. Would you not agree?
It's absolutely correct. There are laws that explain that direct how your property goes if you pass away. But if you want to opt out of those laws, you want to make sure that your plan is in place, not just for your peace of mind, but it's really a gift for your family and for your loved ones
Yeah,
for when you pass away.
yeah. So what are some common mistakes that you see as it relates to real estate and wills? Like if there's one or two things that you think that you're seeing prevalent regarding real estate and wills, what would you say they are?
Sure. I see two things very often. The first one is that when there are changes in the family, people do not update their title. A lot of times,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
yes.
So a lot of people don't think that they have to go to probate or don't think to even record a death certificate when someone passes
Ah,
away. So come 40, 50 years down the road, you have properties that are held in small percentages and all sorts of different pieces of your family. And it could be a real mess when it comes
yeah,
time to actually sell the property or to convey it to someone else.
right. Yeah, that is true. That is very true. I mean, from the real estate standpoint, um, you know, I was in a situation where we had a house in contract and close date was set. And unfortunately, the owner was ill. Um, and so um, everyone, including the owner, wanted to make sure that, you know, we closed the sale of the home and title transferred before the passing, because that would have been a mess for all loved ones involved. And
Yes,
that would have been
yes,
an
absolutely.
unfortunate thing. Yeah. So, yes, that's really interesting. So here's a question for you. And
Sure.
I'm not sure everyone is familiar or clear. Revocable or irrevocable trust. What is the difference? And what do you recommend and why?
Sure. This is a very common misconception about trusts. People think that if I establish a trust, that I'm turning the key, I'm giving it to someone else, and I can't touch my property ever again. But to your point, there are revocable trusts. A revocable trust is like Danny Taylor sets up Danny Taylor Corporation, and she's the CEO. So you can do whatever you want. You could change the rules. You can change the name of your company. You can close it down. It's basically like you own it. Okay. And for most people, without let's say with estates that are 5 million or less, I would say a revocable trust is the way to go. It's no secret that probate in New York is very, very complicated and expensive and time consuming and usually difficult, in some ways needlessly difficult. So doing a revocable trust, when the time comes, if you're incapacitated or you've passed away, it immediately goes over to your trustees to handle it, to handle your estate and to move your property. And it's much naturally simpler and cost effective for your beneficiaries. In contrast, an irrevocable trust is more of that situation where you're turning the key and then you're handing it over to someone else. So these are gifts or transfers where it's not as simple to
Why isn't it as simple, I guess, is something that people might wonder, including myself.
sure. So, like the name suggests, an irrevocable transfer, the intent is that you no longer own the property, okay? And there are usually tax reasons for doing that. You're either trying to reduce your tax load, you are or you're trying to move assets because of look back periods or Medicaid planning. There are lots of reasons why you want to take property out of your name and put it into a trust, but it's not an outright transfer to a person to do whatever they want to. You still set the terms of how those assets or those funds get used for your beneficiaries. It is irrevocable. In certain circumstances. You can undo it, and that is becoming more and more of my practice.
Hmm.
People that circumstances change, 5, 10 years down the road, and they decide that this is not the right thing for them, and they want to undo it. And in some cases, you can, but certainly you want to avoid that if possible.
Okay. Okay, that's really helpful. So I actually was in a situation whereby my dad, I call her my stepmom, mom, but there was no legal marriage. And um my dad had requested that I transfer the home, into her name. And of course, she was trying to figure out, what she should put in place for myself and my brothers. So it's very, very interesting.
Sure.
Okay, so now we have our fourth question. Um,
Okay.
are there specific legal protections for surviving spouses in real estate?
Um, the answer is yes. It's not specific to real estate per se, but in New York, you are not allowed to completely avoid supporting or giving anything to your spouse when you pass away. It's called a right of election. So if your husband isn't feeling charitable or had a fight with you and wrote his will the next day or something, and doesn't put anything in the will for the spouse, the spouse can elect against the will, so to speak, and take her share of the estate, regardless of what the will says.
Is it a percentage or is it a set amount?
There's a percentage, and there are specific items that the spouse is entitled to regardless.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. And I guess one other thing that I came up also recently in one of my sales, what steps should a buyer take if they encounter a lien on a property?
Okay.
So a lot of times you have, homes, right? And it's in, there's a trustee, right? So they're getting this home. But you know, we want to make sure that there's no liens or issues regarding the home. What would you recommend that one of your clients do?
So you run the title search. A lien comes up. You want to investigate it. If it's a lien, it may just be a one or two sentence line on your title search with an address or a telephone number or something like that. Sometimes there are docket numbers. If the lien came up in a divorce proceeding or that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So you want to investigate it to see sometimes if they're very old liens, like 20, 30, 40 years old, that's usually not as serious.
yeah,
You're probably not going to have an issue closing. You just want to clear that up. Try to get somebody with authority to release the lien,
yeah.
so that it doesn't affect your title down the road. If it's more recent, you want to make sure that it isn't a mishit, that it really is a lien against that person, because title searches are usually very broad, and if you have like a John Smith kind of name, it's not uncommon that
Uncommon. Yeah.
yeah, it's not uncommon that it's a mishit or something. And if it's a real lien, you have to see how much it is and how much how serious you are about buying the property, and maybe going back to the negotiating table rather, um, for the terms of the deal and how you want to proceed.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now we're on to two personal questions. So everyone kind of
Okay.
gets an idea of Jonathan Pollack and can kind of get to know you a little bit. Very easy, but you need to be honest and tell me
Okay.
what comes to your mind first, okay?
Sure.
So, what do you have in your life today that your 6 year old self would have died for?
It's not cheesy, but I have a very beautiful wife who loves me very much,
Hmm.
and this nice quiet house, and a 6 year old me never saw it. So
So
very lucky guy.
when you were 6 years old and you were a little boy, you always wanted to get married and have a family. Is that true?
Well, I just never thought that I would have it,
Aw,
because you don't see the path forward, right? You don't know how
yeah,
that's going to happen, and I was very
yeah.
shy.
I never did either, to be honest. I never thought I was going to get married or have children. It's funny how life
There you
works.
go. Hmm.
Okay. Now, you can't use the same answer for the next question.
Okay.
What would your 100-year-old self say that they would miss when they look back on your life?
Well, it's a tough question. I feel like there are a lot of trade-offs that you have. You always want to go do some event or something, some concert or some opportunity. At least for me, you have family support and
Experience?
yeah, that sort of thing. So maybe some of
Yeah.
those sort of things.
Yeah. I always find that experiences are amazing, right?
Yeah.
That's for since my boys were little for the holidays, we really weren't like big 5 million gift people. It was always an experience. When they were younger, I used to make them play Wheel of Fortune, and they would guess where it was we were doing or where we were going, and they were always so super excited. I still tried to do it for Valentine's Day last year. I surprised them with Sebastian Maniscalco tickets, and they were just over the moon. They couldn't believe it because we're obsessed with him. We listen to him in the
Mhm.
car all the time. But
Yeah, he's great.
now that I'm talking to you, I'm like, I better think of something. I don't know what I'm like. I only have 2 weeks, right? So I got to surprise them. They're 16 and 15, so I got to keep them on their toes. I want them to keep wanting to hang out with their mama, you know?
That's right.
We got to keep it going. Well, Jonathan, thank you so, so, so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you. And I really do hope that, once we get our office up and running, which is supposedly hopefully happening in the not too distant future, we can invite you in and you can come and you and I can have a deeper chat on a topic that we think would be really helpful to all of our followers.
Yeah,
Okay?
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me here.
Oh my God, thank you so, so much. And if you, again, Jonathan Pollack from Offit Kurman, Danny Taylor here from the YOLO Home Team, list high, buy low, give back, every home helps a child. Thank you. Have a great day.